Greetings. I am Jarvis Bailey, Assistant Principal at Washington District Elementary School, and for today's Black History Experience, I am honored to present Army Aviator and Commercial Pilot Captain William E. Bailey, a 2016 inductee into the Virginia Aviation Hall of Fame. Captain Bailey's love of aviation began when he was stationed at Rhein-Main Air Force Base, Germany. Bailey began his flight training at Fort Rucker, Alabama, completing fixed-wing officer aviation training in 1966, and later the rotary wing officer aviation training. During the first of two combat tours in Vietnam, Bailey was assigned to the 3rd of the 5th Cavalry, 9th Infantry Division to fly UH-1 Hueys and selected to be the personal pilot for General William Westmoreland, commander of U.S. forces in Vietnam, a testament to his exemplary piloting knowledge and skills. Between tours, Captain Bailey returned to Fort Rucker to train student pilots and pilots in transition to multi-engine and instrument training, and then went back to Vietnam for a second tour. While in the Army, he flew the Bell H-13, Hiller 23, UH-1 Huey, OH-58 Kiowa, Jet Ranger, Cobra, O-1 Bird Dog, de Havilland Beaver and Otter, the Beechcraft C-12 Huron, and C-23. He received 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 3 Bronze Stars, including 1 for Valor, and 32 flying medals. Upon retiring from the Army in 1983, Bailey went to work for People's Express Airlines, later acquired by Continental Airlines. Noticing that the airlines had a dearth of minority pilots, he accepted a request from Continental to assist the airline in recruiting minority and women pilots. He was the ideal person to fulfill this responsibility as he had experienced discrimination himself, both civilian and in his military life. His dedication was evidenced by the fact that he recruited 28 new pilots the first year and 48 the second year. Upon his retirement from Continental in 2002, it was noted that in his aviation career of over 52 years, Captain Bailey trained over 1,000 pilots and mentored roughly 200 African Americans, with 25 flying for airlines. Additionally, Bailey is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity and continues to participate in the Alpha Phi chapter's mentoring program at Virginia State University, where he has been a major component to the university's fundraising efforts. Captain Bailey has made instrumental contributions, and his visionary leadership in aviation and education, as well as his personal passion and dedication, have opened the aviation industry to greater numbers of young professionals, especially minorities. With Captain Bailey's personal mentoring of the multitudes of young Virginians to be successful in whatever endeavor they choose in life, he has contributed to making Virginia, the nation, and our world a safer, better place to live. Thank you, Captain William E. Bailey. You were told that African Americans, you in particular, did not have the mental dexterity to be pilots. Please comment.
Well, thank you very much, Jarvis. It's indeed a pleasure for me to have this interview with you for Black History Month. I'm excited about that. I was smiling when you were reading the bio because some of it sounds strange to me at this point, but it was all true. To answer your specific question about being turned down, yes, that's true. In fact, I was a lieutenant in the Army, and I had flown with one of my colleagues, one of my white colleagues, on numerous occasions. He was a young bachelor, so therefore he would go out at night and carouse around and drink and whatever. And as soon as we took off, he would say, Bailey, keep the airplane pointed in this direction. I'm going to sleep for a few minutes. So as soon as he dropped his head and went to sleep, I kept the aircraft pointed in the direction that he quoted me. However, I would go up, I would go down, I would go left, I would go right, and then I would look over at him and say, and think he was getting extra money to do this, but I was doing all of the work. Mm-hmm. To your specific question, at that point, I figured that I was good enough to apply for flight school, which I did. And I was immediately turned down by higher headquarters. The request did not go all the way to Washington. It was stopped in Heidelberg, Germany. So at that point, it came back to me, and I said, I can't let this happen, mm-hmm. because they told me disapproved. So I have reapplied as an exception to policy. You were supposed to only apply one time. If you were turned down that one time, that was it. So as an exception to policy, I reapplied. At that point, they in fact did send it to Washington, but it came back, and the people at higher headquarters said, listen, you are not qualified. You don't have the mental capacity or the dexterity to fly airplanes. So therefore, don't apply. As a matter of fact, break your fingers so you won't apply anymore. I had two responses to this. First of all, I was upset, I was angry. And the second response was, I fly with my friend. And what does this mean that I can't fly airplanes? Mm-hmm. Because I'm already flying airplanes with my buddy. So I couldn't reapply. And so I gave it up on paper, but it never left my mind. I was always, every day, thinking about flying, reading about flying, talking to people about flying. So to answer your question, my emotions were mixed, mm-hmm. to say this, to my mixed emotions, to say the least about it.
So how did you end up becoming a pilot if you couldn't apply again?
Well, that's a very, very good question. I exhausted every opportunity that I knew that I could possibly muster up to apply. Mm-hmm. But you know, God has a sense of humor. He has a tremendous sense of humor. I left Germany, came back to Fort Eustis, and I was a personnel officer at Fort Eustis, Virginia. And the reason I said that God has a sense of humor is because the lady in Washington, the approving authority, called me and said, Lieutenant Bailey, I can't fill all of my aviation requirements. And I said, why? She said, well, the folks, the soldiers, the officers that have been approved, they have declined to go to flight school because they don't want to go to Vietnam. I said, I applied and you guys turned me down. So she said, well, let me go pull your file and take a look, which she did. And then she called me back and she says, listen, I have your file in my hands. If you can get me a flight physical here in Washington, D.C. from Virginia by close of business on Friday, and this was Monday, then I'll get you into flight school. Well, Wednesday afternoon before close of business, I was walking into her office with my approved flight physical. At that point, she looked at it. She says, okay, you've passed your flight physical. I have your application. There's the requirements, and I have a vacancy for you in the helicopter school in Fort Walters, Texas. Her name is Mrs. Kawakowski. I said, Mrs. Kawakowski, I appreciate you getting me a slot in helicopter school. However, I need to go to fixed wing school, mm-hmm. because I want to be an airline pilot. I think that was quite bold for a lieutenant at that particular time, but that's what I wanted to do. And the reason I say God has a sense of humor is because she came back and she says, you know what? I have a slot. Starts in September. but you have to sign in August. Keep in mind, I had only been in Fort Eustis maybe 60 days with my family, my wife, and my son. So I said, I'll take it. I'll be at Fort Rucker, Alabama before, on schedule. And so I went back to Eustis, told my wife she had to pack up, go to Eastern Shore with my son, and I went to Alabama, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
And that's why I say God has a sense of humor, because I exhausted everything I knew. And God said, sit down, son, let me show you what I can do.
Right.
I stepped back, and as I just said, the rest is history.
Well, and you went on to be highly decorated during your tours in Vietnam, and you have been a successful military aviator and commercial pilot. So let me ask you this in closing, because my timekeeper has said we're almost out of time. So let me ask you this. When I spoke during the protests, and I said to the young people, claim your place in history. What would you say now to the young people listening in, especially our African American brothers and sisters, about what they need to do to claim their place in history? What advice could you give them?
First of all, you have to have a vision. That's the first thing that you have to have. And this vision should start early on, but you can change that vision. I wanted to be a physical education teacher, high school. That's all I wanted to do when I went to college. That was my exposure. I went to Germany as a lieutenant in the Army. My vision changed. So you have to have a vision, and you must keep working towards fulfilling that vision. The third thing you must have a vision, you must keep working, and you must have a belief in God. And God will get you through the tough times, because you will experience difficulties, rocky roads along the way. However, if your belief in God is strong enough, He'll get you through.
Well, thank you. You know, I can say amen to that. I want to thank you, Captain Bailey, retired Colonel Bailey, for your what you've done for African Americans, the pilots, and what you've done for our history. And I want to encourage you to keep on going.
Well, thank you, sir. And I like to keep you encouraged, and thank you for what you're doing for the young people too.
And tell the folks, who's your favorite nephew?
Well, Jarvis Eric is my favorite nephew, has been for a long time. He and my son are traveling companions, and I'm always happy to see his face, and my wife is even happier than I am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
And thank you.